Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new live podcast, the UploadVR Monthly Recap, where we will recap the top gaming news that we covered on our site and share other things that we found interesting recently over the last couple months, in case you missed it or if you just prefer watching a video to reading some of our words. I'm your host, Ian Hamilton, and this is my co-host, Don Hopper, over here. We've also got Beck out there hosting our
Hello,
podcast.
everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. He's got there you go. All right, yeah. So we've got the manual camera switching outside if we need to use it today with Beck Gibson out there as our producer. Hi, Beck. And since this is our first episode doing this format, trying to do this from the studio, we're going to cover the last few months of news. We've got a large area there. We're in this period right before summer when we expect a major amount of news. A lot of games we expect to be announced in the coming weeks
A lot of
for
good
the
stuff.
end of the year. Yeah, it's going to be huge. And then we've got a lot of little things that we're also working on, lots of little interesting ideas that are all brewing, being pushed out on a weekly, almost daily basis in some cases by devs, trying to get their ideas out there and polish them up. And we're tracking those things as well. And at the end of this show today, we'll have a pre-recorded interview with Beck and Alberto Moreno from My Dearest discussing upcoming news about Brazen Blaze, so make sure to stick around. I don't have a tablet this week, and unfortunately that means you do have to see the secret that I do not have a lower body here in this studio, so I apologize, Don. Don's able to maintain that secret.
Legless. You could be
Lego-less?
Lego-less. Yes.
Lego-less. That's a pretty good joke. Yeah, that's a dad joke I'll allow because we invented it live on the show. I'm convinced Kyle preconceives all of his dad jokes and then just tries to
Mine
spring
just
them
come
on
to me
us.
off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's all natural.
So Don has the comments over there. He'll be able to see what is going on because I don't have the tablet. Don, who do we have?
And I was
tuning
going to
in
say,
today?
we have quite a few people joining us already. So I just want to say hi right quick to a few friends of mine that are in the chat right now. Paradise Decay, GTGT. We got Daniel Calhoun, Onakazi, Eric S, Raul James. So just a lot of people joining us today for this kickoff.
Yeah, it's that sounds like people we've had in our audience for a long time. Some of them have watched the VR download and probably have watched our previous iterations of game shows that we've done. Don is an expert. I don't know what
I don't want to call me an expert. But,
I know, right? The word expert is difficult, right? Like there's people who will, I guess, disagree with that term, right? Like you can't be like if you're a VR developer, there's a certain amount of expertise to your job, right?
Absolutely.
That a gamer can't necessarily reveal. Like you can't see that level. You don't understand necessarily the number of hours it takes just to fix the smallest little bug.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
that doesn't detract from hours and hours and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours playing every VR game under the sun.
No, that's true.
Right?
You know, and then I've actually been doing VR since 1997. I think.
Oh, did you did one of those mall? Is it one of the mall ones?
No, I blew an entire student loan to buy the IO Display Systems eyeglasses, which was the Oculus Rift of its day, and the VFX One, which was the Vive of its day.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Well, I appreciate that we're doing this from the UploadVR studios, which means that Don is getting to go up close and personal with every one of David Heaney's bugs in this studio. So he gets to have a firsthand, intimate, face-to-face knowledge with any reality-bending stuff that David Heaney decides to leave for us to discover in this studio. He's going to encounter that in real time. So he's going to get some of that behind-the-scenes insight, even in this studio, right? Like how many but how many App Lab games have you installed over the years that were just
countless?
Yeah,
just countless.
It's wild, right? Like it's one of the things we're struggling with. We've got Henry Stockdale out there just with the announcement today that he's doing reviews editing for us. And it's been a long evolution. And I'm sure you'll see some of the discussion in our comments. We're immediately going off our script here. But
we are. The script just went off.
Yeah, right. Reviews are something. Yeah, reviews are something we're discussing on an ongoing basis. And for all of those people that have been watching our reviews, wondering what we're going to do, that plan is coming together. And I think I'll just say this, we're very aware of the situation that's happening with devs where they're putting out an app under pressure to meet a release date on one or two maybe storefronts that they've got access to. And if you have to make that date, there's a good chance you're going to put out your game with bugs because
Well,
that's your
we see it
only
all the time.
chance.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, we it's a constant cycle of devs releasing games that are, 90% there,
hmm
and literally coming back a week later with those, patches and bug fixes that they and basically, that first week we're all kind of just paid beta testers.
that's not fair. That's not fair to the dev. It's not fair to the person that is buying the game, right? It's not the person that is buying the game is not a paid beta tester, right? They did not buy the game expecting to be that
Right.
in most cases. If you're an App Lab game, that's what that's what you specifically set to your audience. You're buying into an early access program. Same thing is true with early access over on Steam, right? You send that signal to your audience that this thing isn't done. It might never get done. You're buying whatever it is in its current state. And what we have now is a lot of games coming out that get like a day one patch, or not a day one patch, but a week one patch or
Yeah.
a week two patch. And it completely changes the experience. If you went from uncomfortable in something that like was struggling at frame rate in various times to suddenly it being solid frame rate, that's not yet like so we have to do this balance of figuring out how do we tell our audience at launch what the game is actually like in this state while also leaving space for devs to fix some of those things in a week or two or not, right? Like because that could
Absolutely.
also happen. So that's the balance we're trying to strike. We've been working on it, trying to figure out just the right thing to do or the right way to approach it. And it's going to be developing over the next couple months on UploadVR.com. We'll keep an eye on your comments for any feedback in that area. Anything we should respond to before we get into our first subject, which is discussing GDC.
Not real. People are just kind of chatting amongst themselves, asking if is this the new games cast. People are kind of interested as to what we're doing here. So,
Yeah, Gamescast. I mean, we'll see if what the naming arrives at, but
mhm.
we had the Gamescast, and it really was a fantastic, like, well loved. And we see those comments on VR Download week in and week out. People who wanted our games coverage back and wanted to see
Yeah.
us break down. And yeah, we're trying
And
to bring that
with me
back
coming
here.
in, that's definitely something that we've had discussions about is bringing things like that back. Like we did the live stream of Five Nights at Freddy's the other
Yeah.
day, where he inside seated with me. Definitely wanting to kind of bring a lot more of that live in the moment content, where we can get direct viewer interaction.
Yeah, I love the direct viewer interaction, and Don is getting a
Absolutely.
taste for that right here, right? You've had comments in VR on your streams over the years, but
Oh, but yeah,
it's very different when like that's the format of the interaction is like Don can see you ongoing in that conversation and get to your comments if they're really relevant, and this whole thing is kind of a backdrop to that conversation. So that's
absolutely.
yeah. Well, let's talk about GDC a little bit.
Let's do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. What do we
So
got? We got Beck in our ear here.
yeah, we have Beck. We have producer in our ear here for the first time this week with Beck telling us what they're queuing up outside to throw up on the studio wall for us here.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so what we've got coming up here next month is a really big summer games event
Big,
that
huge.
we expect to be just. I think you're going to see a lot of people starting to plan their end of year purchases based on the announcements we're likely to see in the next month to two, especially mid-June, right? So as soon as those announcements drop in that time frame of June, you're going to see people lining up everything for the end of the year, right? They're going to start imagining whether they're getting a PlayStation and a
Absolutely.
PSVR 2, or they're going to get a Quest, or maybe upgrade to a PC from a Quest, or get the next Quest, right? Like, and then yeah. So, but before that
Yeah,
big event that we just have coming up, where we're really going to see the rest of the year charted out, you were at GDC recently,
yeah, it
and
was.
you tried Angry Birds Mixed Reality, which I think is
I
playing behind
did,
us,
yeah.
and a
That
bunch of
was a
other stuff.
really, yeah, it was my first time going to GDC, and besides being completely overwhelming, as to how large it was, we really got a chance to see some pretty good stuff. And Angry Birds. I have always been a huge Angry Birds fan. I love just those twitchy kind of just time wasting games, kinetics, physics, things like that. So on the mobile, I spent so many hours swiping those birds, it wasn't even funny. So when I got the chance to try that at GDC in mixed reality, it was kind of mind blowing. I mean, being able to actually, with your own hands, manipulate and pull back the slingshot, and and watch the towers fall, and actually walk around and plan your shots, and seeing that in that three-dimensional space. Now I know we've already had Angry Birds in VR for a while, but having there's just something magical about mixed reality when it's done right.
Oh
and
yeah.
and the graphics look good. It just stood out. It was a pretty amazing experience. And not only Angry Birds, I saw a couple of other things while I was there that really I wanted to kind of highlight. One of them was Nope Challenge. Definitely had interesting talk with the developer of that one, and how he's kind of pursuing this to really not be a horror game, but to really kind of help people face their fears. I am a huge arachnophobic kind of guy. I hate arachnophobia. I hate spiders, and going through all the spider trials was definitely something that helped me. I was actually cleaning in the garage, saw one out there the other day. I was like, oh, okay, neat, go. So,
Yeah, I remember Jamie was one of his things was just jumping spiders at you was
mhm,
just the thing that set him off, and it's hysterical how many gross spider ants bug
mhm.
things we have coming in VR. And the Nope Challenge game, I love its framing of
I really do.
just getting the heck out of there anytime you want and
And
not
that,
having
yeah,
to remove the
yeah.
headset.
Yeah, not I mean, giving you that note button, that way out to go to that breather space, that safe space, keeping the player in the headset. I mean, those are definitely all things that they were, going for. And it really helps to have that. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I don't get scared at horror games. I don't, but something about those, tapping into people's phobias, heights, bugs, spiders, it changes something in your brain chemistry almost, and it becomes more visceral. It's like,
Well, yeah, like at that moment when you start sweating from the
mhm,
fear, right?
you
You
get that
don't get
limbic
that even out of
system.
this. Yeah, you don't
Yes,
even get that. You don't even scare. Like you could watch the scariest movie and yeah, you'll scream at a jump scare, but you
absolutely.
won't be like sweating bullets, right? Like
Yeah,
and that happens within just a few seconds in most of these games. And
and that's because VR is tricking your brain in some ways into thinking that, well, that spider, I know it's not real, but my brain and my subconscious going, yeah, but is it?
yeah. Well, we'll
So,
come back on some of this horror later in the show when we talk about Five
yeah,
Nights at Freddy's and some of
yeah,
the video we've got there. And it's funny to think of horror, like really immersive horror that takes over your whole environment as in such opposition to the mixed reality stuff, where like
absolutely.
you've got this tower in the middle of your room or a Demio board, right? Like that's such a different laid back thing compared to holy crap, I'm getting hunted in my own house by a
Oh
ghost,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Oh, I like, or like the dropped at the cabin, like zombies
Mm.
busting through my walls into my living room. So
Well, got any comments there that you wanted to bring up before we move
um,
on to our news review?
no, I just people are asking about sound, but most people are saying volume seems fine on their end. Uh, yeah, okay, so it looks like Beck's taking care of that, and yeah, people are just kind of more talking amongst themselves. Robin is kind of handling a lot of those questions in the chat, so I think
So,
we're good to move on.
yeah, so let's go over some of our gaming news here that's been big over the last couple months in case you missed it. We're not going to dive deep into these subjects. We're still going to stay on the surface. We're sort of just recap for people who might have missed kind of the takeaway big news here. And because we haven't been doing this and this is our first time getting into this, we're going to cover both like March and April here,
Yeah,
kind of catching people up to what has happened here. So starting with March, I've got three subjects down here on my notes here to spring that happened in March. And so number one, you're going to love this, Don, because you have been on the case here. Flat to VR Studios is
Absolutely.
creating licensed VR ports of flat screen games. I think this is probably the biggest trend in VR gaming, period. We've watched it build for years here. And, you know, you've been in some of the stuff. We'll talk about even some of it later in the show that has been ported from flat over
Hmm.
to immersive VR. And it's fantastic, some of this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, all of the modders coming together to form Flat to VR Studios. You know, I mean, you've got Dr. Beef and his team, and you know, kind of taking the lead on that. It is amazing what these guys are doing with these older games, and that the fact that we are bringing full VR into these titles. I mean, you know, for years, I mean, as one of the OGs, you know, we struggled for years wanting full rich, deep, immersive experiences and wanting those classic game franchises to come over. And now with UEVR, it, the possibilities are limitless. I mean, if it's in UE4 or UE5, we can possibly get it into VR with full hands. I mean, everything that you would want in a VR experience. And you know, some of them are pushing boundaries as well. I mean, we've got some games that are showing photorealism. I know Ride 5 is one that I'm looking into checking out. I saw a video over on Twitter, sorry, X, formerly known as Twitter, where they were doing its motorcycle game. But I mean, the graphics looked photorealistic in that, and we just haven't had anything close to that yet in just the VR space yet. So
Yeah, I think it delivers, it seems in my mind to deliver on some of the promise of what VR, what people wanted VR to be in 2016 and 2017, right? Like
mhm.
everyone that was aching for a lot of really cool VR content, there were things that were spinning up, like what Grand Theft Auto, there was
Mhm.
versions of Grand Theft
Well, the
Auto
Luke
that
Ross
had been,
mod, yeah.
well, like there was very early versions of some of these things in that time period, but it was hard, right? Like you still had to do,
Oh, so
the
much.
people who are building these modding systems are growing by leaps and bounds in just the usability of getting the mods themselves
Mhm.
installed. And that, in addition to just this easy, like turnkey almost tool to use to get all of your Unreal Engine projects into VR, has been an enormous surface for VR.
Yeah, I mean, using UEVR, and then there's a companion tool, RayPal. You put them together, it scans your PC, it tells you what games you've got installed, you know, are they UE? It instantly allows you to start the game from right there. I mean, so other than, you know, I still remember some of the earliest experiments like Vorpix, you know, which is still out there and still a very, very decent program for certain things. But it was so difficult to get everything dialed in and right. And now we've got this wonderful modding scene coming together over on the Flat to VR Discord and their pages, you know, and everybody's creating profiles. And I mean, we're, you know, it's just, it's exciting to watch these communities build and grow around that and around that mod.
Yeah, and not to derail, so we'll move on to, I'll use this as a transition to our next subject here, where we've got some of that incredible mixed reality content that I think is at the other end of the spectrum compared to what you were describing before. So the next subject we're going to have up here is laser dance. So
Nice.
laser dance, mixed reality, hands-on, we got that recently. So that is a game brought to us in partnership by Creature, I believe.
It is creature.
Yeah, so that's the publishing partner sort of helping that dev get the game out. So that was Cubism's developer onto a new project, I believe. And it's phenomenal. So we should be throwing up the trailer here in a
Yeah, I was
minute
gonna say, I think
for.
we got a short trailer for that, and, you know, that is unfortunately one that I did not get to see at GDC. We had left the day before, and Meta was showing demos of that on the last day. Now, I think you have played Laser
Yeah.
Dance, haven't you?
Yeah, so that was one, and I guess I don't know who cares about this in our audience or not, but like it's actually quite tricky when you have a physical event in the real world that a dev may or may not want to go to. Like they may have to travel across the United States or whatever to get to, because they need to meet people face to face to make deals for their work, or they're curious about the tracks for the event. I got access to this game at home, right? Like you
Right.
went to this physical GDC event, tried all these demos out that are at the event, and that's incredibly important. You get access to a ton of stuff. But we have to also plead with our audience, plead with our devs. Like we've told them for years, we have the headsets at home. You can add us to a test flight or an app lab release
I am
schedule
always
for your.
happy to test your app.
Yeah, right. We want to
So
test these things. We want to see what they look like in their earliest states, and we can have a real honest discussion of like, okay, we won't look at this build when we consider writing a hands-on. We'll look at the build that you intend to
absolutely.
release broadly to people when we consider writing that hands-on, right? Like that's very easy communication. But like it's really, really easy for them to give access to this stuff at home. But there's still a few reasons why we need to go to these physical events.
Mhm.
Anyways, Laser Dance, right? Like not only did I test it at home, I ripped out my hallway here. I moved all the furniture out of it to make a nice little hallway of the minimum length required for Laser Dance, and then put the buzzer at opposite ends of the room. And both myself and my kid ran through these Laser Dance mazes, and it was phenomenal. Absolutely one of the top tier, just a step above room scale VR gaming
So
in a really important way.
do you think that the addition of the fact that it is a mixed reality experience that does utilize your entire room space, did that play into that?
Yeah, it absolutely did. Like it makes a difference because the fundamental gameplay is touching the wall.
Yeah.
You've got to go touch the buzzer at the opposite end of the wall. And what other game is really like that, right? You're always like pointing lasers at walls and maybe grabbing something that's in front of like pops out from the wall and you've got to manipulate some kind of object that pops
Right.
out. No, this is like I'm actually pressing my hands up against a surface that's now matched up to my space. What's really neat is I talked to the dev and I've seen this place in New York where they've got a spy museum in New York and they've got a room set up at the spy museum where you dodge lasers that are beaming through the space, and it
Oh,
is
that would be so
almost
fun.
1-to-1 the same game in a physical room where you're running and dodging lasers and trying to press all these buttons on the wall.
My God, that
It's
sounds
it's
amazing.
really, really close. And yeah, it matters significantly. Like Jeff is the closest thing I can think to of being as engaged by my room scale environment as I was by just this few minutes of Laser Dance. So yeah,
So
that
I don't
game
know
is
if
on the
you
way.
can confirm this, but we have let's see here, Jonas Stanstead in the chat. He's saying that he thinks Laser Dance uses local multiplayer. So is this a co-located experience?
I don't think I've seen any mention of multiplayer for Laser Dance
I
from
was gonna
that
say I
dev.
hadn't seen it. He did correct that. Okay, sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
So, but what is interesting there is what we're seeing is the sharing system that Meta and Apple use for taking your location data, like processing it on their servers, and then getting that over to another headset. They're evolving over the last couple of years, and there's devs like the devs of Space Pirate Trainer. If you've ever played Space Pirate Trainer, there's a special version of Space Pirate Trainer called Space Pirate Arena, and they
Yes.
built it years ago for this ability to go and sync up your location with another person, use the maximum area of tracking out of your Quest headset, and play basically laser tag or paintball with another human being in the same space. Fantastic experience.
No, I remember
Incredible.
OC where they had the whole arena doing like
Yeah.
4v4.
So
I
it's
do have
good
a
to know
story.
that, yeah, it's good to know that Beck is seeing that too. So I've got
Yeah.
actually verification of my reality in real time. Normally I'm with David here and I'm always like wondering, wait, did anyone else see Don just warp out of reality? And I got Beck, verifying
Whoa.
in my
Am I
real.
back now?
Yeah, so Don is back.
Robot Don. Yeah.
Yeah, so what were we talking about? I was too distracted by you warping in and out of reality.
We were talking about like the proper use of room scale in mixed reality and how that really can enhance those experiences. And I think that kind of ties into what we were going to talk about next, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. Yes.
Oh, yes. No, I'm sorry. I thought we already did.
Yeah, I thought let's show the trailer for Laser Dance so people
Yeah.
get an idea of what we're talking
Let's
about. And
take a look.
And I think, will there be audio? Yeah, so that's Laser Dance, right? For
Yeah.
people that
No,
didn't
it look
familiar.
really cool, man.
Yeah, it's
There's
inc
definitely something I wanna try.
Oh,
I'm
you've
all
got
about
to.
any mixed reality that takes over my entire
It's
space right now.
sticky. It's stickier than VR content, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I gotta rip that headset off you and go in myself the moment you see someone else do this in your environment, and you don't necessarily have that with a lot of VR, like a lot of just pure VR games. It can sometimes be hard to abstract out, "What the hell are they doing in
Well,
VR?"
and
But
then to
that
be
doesn't happen with mixed
yeah.
reality.
Oh, no, I mean, and it's just because it's happening in your space. It just like I said, it becomes we're still in the experimental phase. Obviously, we're still in kind of that old Oculus Share days of mixed reality, where developers are just getting their footing and they're really experimenting and doing some interesting things with it. But I think we're finally starting to come into that area where developers are thinking outside of just tech demos with it. Now they're starting to think, how can I make this into a fully realized VR game that's going to take over your space?
Yeah, I think that's really true, and I also think you're gonna have to watch the VR download for us to discuss what Don's discussing in a broader way, right?
Yeah,
So, what he's discussing right there is the on the ground sort of devs grappling with how to learn what to use with their platforms. But over on the download, we discussed that the platforms themselves weren't necessarily ready to allow these types of games to exist
I
even
agree.
a year ago. So like it's pretty significant that all this stuff is happening all at once. I think it's time to talk about Starship Home.
Well, as I was gonna say, that's a perfect transition. I mean, because once again, Starship Home, another great example of how developers have taken that mixed reality concept and gamified it into a full experience. And I think that this is technically the first Quest 3 exclusive?
I think that's how it was announced, yeah, and it would be curious to see if it's the first by the time it launches, because of course, what we just had the Hello Dot game
Yes.
that we just
Yeah.
covered, and that's only running. Not only is it only Quest 3, it's only Quest 3 hand tracking
Yeah.
as an experimental experience to have this little dot pet pop into your
Well, and that
environment.
one that one uses hand occlusion as well.
It's
So,
it's body occlusion, right?
yeah,
Like, so I,
body
I had
occlusion,
my
yeah.
laptop on. It's everything occlusion. It's dynamic everything. So I'm having a laptop here, and I move the laptop out of the way, and there's my dot creature floating there on the ground at my feet, and it was fantastic. And like that's the first thing on the platform that does all that together. So this is happening in real time as we're speaking. Big thing. Beck, can we throw the video trailer up for Starship Home so that people can
Yeah,
see what that one
this
looks
is
like?
amazing looking.
All right, so that's Starship Home. Do we have any
Yeah.
comments about mixed
Um,
reality over there that
yeah,
we should talk
take
about
a let's
before we
take a
move
look
on?
here.
And
Yeah, let's take a look here real quick. And so we got Kyle in the chat. Hey, Kyle, how's it going? Next Evolution of Gaming's cast. Let's see here. Um, we've got a couple like let's see here. The only one really, and I can't confirm this, but we have Minx saying slightly off topic, but I think the same on hand object vision and cubism.
Mm. I think
Showed examples
Cubism.
of puzzle pieces hidden in cabinets and boxes.
Yeah,
Um,
so this video, there's been a video circulating on Twitter as of today of like just messing with this feature. And the idea is it was silly, right? Like this idea that you could hide pieces inside of like cabinets and build an Easter egg game.
like hide and
And
seek in your own house. That's just
it's a
who'd ever
cool
thought?
it's a funny idea, but then like game design wise, that game requires you to spend what 90%, 95% of your time
Hmm.
looking at the real world exclusively through pass through, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to look at a laggy, low resolution view of your environment, and you don't have any of this beautiful virtual
And
content
see,
that
and
it
I
looks
do.
really crisp.
And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, that kind of segments into just a real quick aside that I wanted to talk about that kind of ties in with Starship Home. Have you seen Astra?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so Ian, my living room went to warp, and it and it literally blew me away. I mean, it made me weak in my knees. It something about the having the windows in my actual space and then seeing that effect literally made me weak in my knees.
Yeah.
It was an amazing, amazing experience and very, very akin to this and to what we're talking about. So
The one I think about, the example I always think about is Stress Level Zero's Hover Junkers game that was very
yes,
early. And if no one ever played this, but because the PC market was so small back then, but this is Stress Level Zero, the creators of Boneworks, Duck Season, Bone Lab, incredibly innovative developers doing some phenomenal frontier work in VR. And they built this game where you would have a platform that you
mm,
could stack boxes around the platform and
right,
then basically joystick the platform across a wasteland, and you could see other platforms
and we're
going
all like,
around the wasteland and
yeah,
collide with them and try to shoot over the boxes. And it was this very early effort to try to make all of this work. Right, that was them with their guardrails on saying let's try to make this comfortable for people before they said, okay, let's just get really fun with the physics over in Boneworks. And they obviously did amazing work with Boneworks and
oh,
Bone Lab.
absolutely,
But you take it a step back and you imagine these games that turn your whole home into a traveling, this is the magic school bus that
yeah.
we were promised when we were
Okay,
kids.
that's exactly the analogy I was looking for. Thank you. This
Yeah.
is exactly the magic school bus.
Yeah.
So
And I want magic school. That's like an entire category of
well,
mixed reality
and
game,
kind of
right?
bringing Astra up again, you said Magic School Bus. If you go to play that, you're going to find it's not just gamified. You're actually touring parts of our solar system, and you're beaming down. You actually get the stand inside of a transporter, and
Oh.
big Trekkies here. So you stand in front, you stand inside of the transporter, and the next thing I know, I'm on the surface of Europa.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's just the amazing amazing narration going on, a set to these beautiful graphics. We'll definitely be covering this
Oh,
on
yeah.
the channel here soon. It's definitely something I'm working on.
It's a good pitch, a good time now to pitch and recommend. Do please come to uploadvr.com. Consider becoming a member. Support
Yes,
our work directly. It means an enormous amount to us to see that support, to know that there are people out there who value our efforts to try to cut through uh, the jargon, the hype, and just present what's actually going on in the VR space. So I
absolutely.
think. Yes, and of course, we did recently add a free tier so that you can go to uploadvr.com
Everybody can join the conversation.
and you can comment for free, of course, now like we used to have in the old days, but just a slightly re-engineered version of what we had a long time ago. So please go check that out. And also, yeah, please consider becoming a member to support our work financially. All right, so I think now it's time to move into April. We're about halfway
Yeah,
through
I'd say
our
good
target
time to
here.
segment into April. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got into BeefRaider XR in
Oh
April,
man.
and
Oh
we need to talk about this because people look at the name BeefRaider and go, "What? What?
yeah,
What do you?
it is a
What is
silly
this?"
name. Yeah, it's a little, but obviously that paying homage to Dr. Beef and his team. Once again, kind of going back to the wonderful modding scene that we have in VR right now. Never in a million years back in the late '90s did I think that I would one day be playing Tomb Raider from the eyes of Lara Croft and actually having it be something that is just immersive and all around me and it was a magical feeling. It
Yeah,
really was.
Beck, can you throw that video up with no sound so that we can talk about it behind us here?
Yeah, this is a video that we have on the YouTube.
Oh, so Beck can't do that. So
You
Beck can
can't
only
She
make
can't
it
do it?
full screen. So
I
I
can
guess
do
we
it,
won't
but I
do
don't know
that.
if I can do it without
Oh
sound.
no, we can do it with sound. This is the one that Don can throw up.
Yeah, hold on. I can do it from the tablet here.
Let's see if this works. Uh-oh. No,
Oh,
the no sound. So we
well, I'm hitting
miscommunication on
cast
our
and
side, but it's
it's
not
not doing
working.
it anyway.
Well,
So
so Don, so we were talking about this, and I'm like, Don, what was the Tomb Raider where we had the T-Rex? And he's like,
yes,
yeah, that's the first one, and
that's
I'm
the original.
almost to that level. And I'm like, okay, Don, you've got to you've got to get the T-Rex, and I got to know what the T-Rex is. And Don goes in there and captures this T-Rex encounter that is so memorable from the first Tomb Raider. And God, we've got to have these people in our audience who played that game, and that's like a I have to get this across to our audience, right? Where gaming was a quiet, solitary experience when these
Oh, big
games
time.
came out, right? You didn't have a second screen playing music or blasting a commercial at you. You were there in the game. So you're sitting there just with Laura going through these caves quietly for hours and hours, and then all of a sudden this T-Rex pops out of nowhere and starts terrorizing you, and you've seen hints in the game that this might
Mhm.
happen, and then boom, and then you're dual wielding there with two pistols, like feeling like you're Lara after all these years, Don. That really did feel.
I mean, it was visceral. I mean, and the fact that it had 6 DoF and motion controls. I mean, I'm wielding the guns. It wasn't that I'm just pressing a button and having Laura shoot. I mean, I for a split second, I was Laura Croft.
Yeah.
you know.
And it's these videos and some of the work that they're doing in some of these ports where like you've I've talked about this. We have video on this channel on our podcast with Simon, Dr. Beef, talking about this idea going back years of where is the official support for doing these mods
Exactly.
over in store
Well,
and
and
getting
and
these things.
and now we have it. I mean, we
Yeah.
have that coming. I mean, the first and now obviously we don't know what it is yet, but the first officially licensed port of a classic VR game coming into VR through UVR Studios is on the way.
And so like what the one that gets me really like the feature that they have to if they nail this feature, if they nail the ability to you doing a really weird somersault or whatever uncomfortable thing and having your body disembody in front of you when that happens
Well,
and you
we are we
see the weird you do a somersault whatever and then you just instantly teleport back into your body on the other side of the uncomfortable thing. I know that
so
they're
they actually
experimenting
no,
with
I was
that,
going to
right?
say no, we actually have that. That's already in the Jedi Knight Academy and Jedi Academy ports. So you can instantly just hit a button and transition from first to third person. So like when they get that into the BeefRaider port, all of the kind of awkward jumping and platforming sequences are going to feel a little more natural because you'll be able to switch to third person, do those sequences, switch back to first person for your combat and for your exploration.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
okay.
fantastic.
So
So
it
we've
looks
got
like
the
we have
video
video
now
going.
showing some of this stuff.
So,
And yeah, Beck, tell us what's happening on the video if you can, because we can't see it ourselves inside the studio here. But this is the video where,
okay.
yeah,
So
where
she's just
you're,
starting from the beginning here. Yeah.
and
So,
the atmosphere here, right, Don? Like, that's what I
oh
loved
God,
about
it
your
was
presentation of this
steeped in it.
video.
Steeped in it. Now, obviously, we're still looking at 1996 graphics. We're
Yeah.
still looking. But the beauty thing is, and I think you could probably attest to that too, and this goes back to the early days as well. Graphics aren't important when it comes to immersion. It really, or at least to me, it's not. It's more about the world and the gameplay that
Yeah.
sucks me in. It's not the
Well,
visuals.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it's funny. I saw this. I'm remembering it was either Hard Drive or The Onion that had a very funny joke about how a person who got an old ROM machine, like a Raspberry Pi, up and running with all their old games, plays 5 minutes of every game,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of has that same feeling of going and looking in some of these things. It's like, oh. Oh, that's what 1996 feels like.
Mhm.
I'm good now. I want to go back to 2020, right? Like you can, there is that sense. It's both, right? Like, oh, holy crap, I'm standing in that game that I imagined myself standing inside of in the
Exactly.
1990s. But at the same time, you also want to go back to the
Well,
visually rich stuff
and
sometimes.
I think we get the best of both worlds with the modding scene out of that. And I mean, so you've got Dr. Beef and his team, Team Beef. They're concentrating on bringing some of those time honored classics into VR. So we got Doom, Quake, Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I mean, Prey. The Prey mod is amazing. If you've got a VR legs and a good stomach, because there's a lot of going upside down. And but and then and so those are realizing those classic games. And then now on the other side of the spectrum, we have UVR, which is now taking those more modern titles with those high end AAA graphics in UE Engine 4 and UE Engine 5.
Yeah.
So
Any comments there that we should get into before we move on
um
here?
no, just some people saying hi to each other and not really seeing. Let's see here. Just like read back through here. No, really, just people talking amongst themselves.
Let's move on to the next subject here. I don't know how long we'll talk about this one, but Meta's rebranding of the Quest software as Horizon OS was a very big piece of news. We covered it some on VR Download. I removed some of our big news that we covered already in VR Download, but this is one that is going to shape the VR gaming space in a pretty fundamental way that our
It's going to change
audience
a lot
that
of things.
yeah, that we're still grasping and grappling, like trying to understand exactly what it means for Meta to kind of shuffle the platform cards around in front of their developers, right? Like that's kind of what this always feels like when they do this every 6 months or so. Meta, Facebook restructures all of
It
its
does seem like we
plans.
see it like quite often.
Yeah. Meta, it's what they do, right? They're constantly, it's part of their culture is shifting resources in favor of what the winning idea is. And that's yeah, we're seeing that in real time here. So uh that's we've got headsets planned from Asus, Lenovo, and then there's also the Xbox Microsoft Quest that is supposed to be coming in the offing. And as we've talked about over on the other show, pricing of these headsets is going to be a major question. We kind of expect the Meta headsets to still be the low price, high volume leaders of the market.
Yeah, I can
And
see that.
where that leaves me wondering, Don, is like, are they really going to sell enough units of these other headsets that are more expensive to keep those businesses going for Xbox or for
I,
Asus or for
I,
Lenovo?
I mean, I don't know. I kind of think it's kind of like a lead in, I mean, I think people are going to, it's just like anything else, it's incremental. So, you're going to get your feet wet in that lower end headset.
Mm.
And then you're going to want to start chasing that dragon. And then before you know it, you're like me and you have 33 headsets sitting on a shelf
Yeah, I know
behind
it.
you.
It is. And it's funny. Like I've looked at the offices for, like I know a little bit about what Kyle's space looks like. I know what your space looks like for your office, and we all have similar sort of like we were trying to reduce the importance of screens in our
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
while at the same time, like there's all these items that are going to become useful in various ways to our VR experience with just the right software hardware combination, and it's all coming together. We can feel all
No,
these
it's so close. So
amazing
close.
things. Like it's watching you do the Dune ornithopter right in your yaw chair, turning left and right physically, while knowing that your cockpit is a really 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 close uh, sync up to that. Like I know that that is a feeling a lot of people in our audience are going to chase
It
over the
it is
years.
the
It's going to be a
deepest
ramp over the next 10
level
years.
of immersion and presence that you can get to when you start to combine all of the physical sensations with the virtual, and it is just amazing.
So there's a lot of opportunity for Meta ahead of it to really build an incredible gaming platform across the store and across Horizon worlds. But one of the questions I'm putting to Andrew Bosworth, to Mark Mark Zuckerberg if I can, but no, to John Carmack. I'm putting these questions out there, trying to understand how do you have this ecosystem of gaming that exists on Horizon Worlds. They've built up a bunch of like gaming focused worlds on that ecosystem, stuff that you might find also on a Rec Room or VR chat. That's stuff that exists now inside of Horizon, as well as like comedy clubs and other things
Mhm.
like that that are just weird uh, venues now
Well, again, a
inside
lot
of
of
Horizon Worlds.
experimentation going on in there.
Yeah,
So,
tons, and it's been like that for years now, and that all exists parallel to some devs that we have in our audience, devs that we contact on a constant basis that are giving 30% of their income, their revenue away from the sale of their games to Meta in order to carry those games on the MetaQuest store. And that's that stuff we were talking about earlier in the show where you got to make your release date, and if there's bugs, you're in trouble, and all these things that you feel pressure to deliver because the platform is there sort of telling you what rules you need to follow.
exactly.
So it's difficult out there. I think we will we will see how Meta puts together its new Horizon OS in the coming months, and that's I think we'll start to see, we've already seen some of that come together with their first announcements of new games,
Mhm.
but right, they've got a bunch of studios that they've acquired that we have seen nothing announced from outside of stuff like Batman Arkham Shadow. So let's move on to the
Ooh.
next subject here, which is Alien Rogue Incursion. So this was announced for Quest 3, PlayStation VR 2, and PC VR. Don, what is the scariest Alien game you've played in VR?
Oh, well, I mean, it is the mod. It
Yeah.
is, yeah, Alien Isolation. By far is probably one of the scariest games I've ever played in VR. I mean, hiding in lockers and having the xenomorph chase and hunt you the way that it did, the atmosphere was amazing. But I mean, obviously, we know mod was never 100% perfect on that. So, really, really looking forward to this.
Yeah. And that's funny, like to think of that, right? Again, full circle with this thing that was there years and years ago. Like I think though that mod was in market before the Rift
Well, I think
consumer
people,
version even hit.
I wanna think, yes, it was actually. I remember the first time playing it on DK2, and the fact that it was only ever meant to be a show floor tech demo, and then the scene, the old OG, Reddit scene, I believe, on the Oculus subreddit, kind of started digging into the code and found the instances to turn on the VR.
Yeah, it's funny to try to think of putting that in context of like what role does that experience have in all the other things that are happening today, right? There are plenty of people who I was one of them who had those early DK1s, DK2s, and put person after person inside of things
Oh
like
yes.
Alien Isolation, including yourself, to see like, is it just me that is getting this
Hmm.
scared?
Yeah,
Right?
I
Like,
wanted to know. It's like, are you is the hairs on your back of your arms stand up? Do you sweat? Do you really does your heart start pounding? Because mine does.
yeah.
It was the
And
first time I felt terrified
yeah.
in VR.
So the bar, it's funny to think of how the bar is there, right? Like that is an incredible bar for Servios to have to meet. And
It is. It's
if
a
there's
high
a
bar.
developer to do it, Servios can do it, right? Like this is a startup that was,
Servios, don't mess this up.
yeah, they were in existence prior to like even Oculus kind of forming. Those people were
I
at,
feel good. I feel good about, a studio with that breadth
yeah.
taking on this project. So,
So we'll see how that comes together. We cannot wait to see uh, the Alien franchise adapted again after all these years. The bar is high to overcome a mod like that, even after a decade.
no, yeah, and we got Paradise Decay is agreeing, Alien Isolation is the only scary game in the Alien franchise ever. We got Phasmophobia being chased by the Revenant baby. Now, that's one I have not played yet. I do need to jump in and play Phasmophobia at some point. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. Let's see
Oh,
here.
Phasmophobia. Yeah, I've Phasmophobia. I
Jack
played on.
B.
I'm willing to do
Jack B.
Phasmophobia on
You're
flat.
rock. She's making an actual aliens reference. Can we talk about the bonus situation? So,
The bonus
Well,
situation. I got
I
that
actually
reference. Oh,
date night 2 weeks ago was the Alien 45th anniversary, I think. So my wife and I went to see it again in the theater.
oh, that's fantastic. So
It was great.
I'm trying to discover the cinema scene in New York, and I found a place that serves themed dinners after a movie, so they'll
Oh,
like
cool.
make all of your meals. But the next one is Shrek, and I'm
Oh,
like,
weird.
do I
Oh
really
no,
want a Shrek themed dinner as well?
no.
Yeah. Shrek's amazing. Okay, we
But I
know
don't know. I don't want to
commenters
eat
don't
fruit of
we're
the
not
swamp.
demeaning
You know.
Shrek, and
No,
the
Shrek is
hero
awesome.
scene in Shrek 2 is canonically the best animated scene in all of history. So like yeah, so I'm a big defender of Shrek, but I don't know if I want a Shrek meal. All right, so let's
Yeah.
any other comments we should move
No,
on to before we talk about
basically because people once again bringing up phasmophobia over and over again here. So definitely looks like that's another scary game I need to put on my radar.
well, Phasmophobia wins because of the
Well,
cross-platform.
and that's what people are talking about is the fact that it actually is multiplayer,
Yeah.
and I think we need more of those types of experiences. I mean, horror is a dish best served shared. I guess.
I love that. Well, like it's funny what you can define as horror. What is the game that I just played? Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. That's not a horror game. You can't call that horror, but you can. It's not too dissimilar from like The Room, right? Like when
Yeah,
you've
but
got a
it gives you
gadget.
that anxiety. It's that impending doom.
Yeah, right.
Thing.
Yeah,
So
and if you're playing that as your first VR game, and you're suddenly boom inside of there, and like, oh God, that the bomb just went off. It would still get you, right?
yeah.
Like,
Oh, every time, every time.
all right, so let's talk about Arkham Shadow.
Oh,
Beck, can you pull
please.
up the teaser for Arkham Shadow, because this is a big one for us to get
Oh
into
God,
here.
this is like probably going to be one of the biggest releases of the year.
So that's
Okay.
Arkham Shadow. Yeah, we've only got a teaser there. We can
Ooh.
expect a much deeper look at this
Yes.
game pretty
So
soon.
25 days, they are going to be premiering the full cinematic trailer during the Summer Game Fest. And that
Yeah.
is one, they've got a countdown right now on a meta page for it. And I am counting the seconds because I absolutely want to feel like Batman in VR again. The
Yeah.
first Arkham experience was amazing, but very short. So
So for people that weren't really watching, and correct me if my memory is wrong here, that I'm misremembering how this came out, but I do believe the Batman game was leaked by the federal government, more or less, in its
no,
whole case.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, in its case against Meta, I believe they basically outed that Camouflage, the developer of Iron Man VR, was also working on a Batman game. I believe it got put
Okay.
out there when that happened, and we
Oh,
basically waited
during
for.
the congressional. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it was during.
Okay.
Well, no, I don't think it was during the
Or no,
congressional. It was during the FTC,
or the
or the
FTC.
connected,
Yes.
that whole connected investigation of everything that's happened. But there was this like whisper of Batman game getting out there onto the internet, and then of course no comment because Camouflage, the
Yeah.
developer,
Oh, yeah.
was acquired by Meta through this process, and it was almost like magic last year when this Iron Man VR game just sort of materialized out of thin air on the Quest platform as this incredible experience that already existed on the PSVR platform. And remember, those devs did some phenomenal work, I believe, to use. Remember, PSVR controllers, if you, for those that aren't familiar, use the front-facing camera that's supposed to be over there, and then you've got these controllers that need to be seen by the camera that's over there. Well, as I recall, Iron Man VR and the developers did some phenomenal work to allow you to really feel like Iron Man, despite this
Oh, it
tracking
was.
limitation of
Yeah, it was
the
great.
system.
I mean,
And
the flight felt good. I mean, it was fantastic.
and then you added Quest standalone, and they had to like get it onto a Quest 2 system at
Mhm.
the time. Like that's really hard, phenomenally hard work. And then you think about the upgrade to Quest 3 graphically, paired with the studio that has done such phenomenal work to bring the superhero experience into
Mhm.
VR to really make you feel like you're that superhero, right? We've seen some Marvel Powers United VR, right? Like you've seen some of these things where let's give you one gesture to represent that particular superhero. That's
Right.
not the same as like zip lining across a city, or the various things that
There's
Batman can do.
so many things that they could do with the Batman that is believable. I mean, because it's not a lot of it is superpowers. It's tech.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
that's
now one thing that's kind of and Onakazi's bringing up a good point here, though. He said, because we mentioned that they are releasing a full cinematic trailer, and he's saying, well, expect more hate because
yeah.
obviously when the teaser dropped, there was quite a bit of hate from the non-VR community over the
Well,
fact that this is a VR exclusive. But he's saying that there will be cries of show real gameplay
yeah.
or nothing.
Well, that's what we will be after. And, these companies, Meta and the developers, get to choose who they want to
Yes.
sort of premiere their game, how they want to premiere it. We are in that camp that wants to see real gameplay. And if you don't show real gameplay, make sure it's, really clear in block letters what you're showing and why you're showing that instead.
Well, all I
Uh,
can say is that everybody watching, as soon as we can, we will be putting out coverage of
yeah.
Arkham. So,
We will go hands on with that as soon as we
yes,
can get in line and
as
try it
soon as we
out. And
can.
yeah, so that's a phenomenal big game to have come down the pipeline, and we expect big things from Meta sort of late in the year to try to. I mean, that's a bundle. That's a potentially bundle worthy
Oh, I could
title.
see that. Yeah.
So we'll see what they choose to do
Hmm.
near the end of the year.
Wonder what they would have that with.
I think we're ready to talk about our last big subject here before we throw it over to Beck's interview
Okay.
with my dearest. So let's talk about Five Nights at Freddy's. So uh, we have Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 out there now. It launched late last year on PSVR 2
It was like
and
late December. Yeah,
yeah,
like right at the end of the year.
arriving on PSVR and on our PSVR 2 um
PC on Steam,
and Steam. And
and
then
so
we've
what we
been
saw
waiting
last
for
week
this
was
Quest.
Meta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we Quest version is out there now. Don's going and looking for a little photo up here to show up a graphics comparison.
Yep.
What's
Now I've got
interesting
that right
here, Don,
here.
is I went to our archives and I found our graphics comparison from 2020.
I saw that.
So yeah, that was the Help Wanted 1 game here in this franchise. And Five Nights at Freddy's is such a important. It's like it's silly to call Five Nights at Freddy's important, but it is. It's a big franchise that has a
Well, it's a
powerful
huge
impact
franchise.
on millions and millions of people,
Well, and
right?
it crosses genders, it crosses age gaps. I mean, you've got older people that are into this, you got younger people that are into this. My
And the movie
kids,
was good. I
the
really
movie was
enjoyed the
good.
movie. Yeah, it was.
If I have to, I'm not gonna lie. If I have to hear more lore from my daughter after playing this, and Dad,
Yeah,
and
I
then
don't
there's
know
this lore, and there's this lore, and this lore, and that lore. It's like,
the golden Freddy. I don't like.
yeah,
I don't follow it that well enough. So,
not
but
into
there's
it.
still lore in these. There's still lore in these games. It's still
Absolutely.
building, and people are eating it up left and right. Like this is still more. You
Oh,
still want more. Like I got that feeling from just watching an hour of you
I've
playing this on
never
stream.
really been a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't like the original because I'm not a I'm an up. I want to get up. I want to move around the room. I'm not all about something that keeps me stationary.
Well,
But
that's funny, but you like the point and click
no,
games.
I do. But I like you can still get up and walk around. It's like I don't know, look at it. But something about this one. it really grabbed me, and it keeps me coming back for more, and I want to push it, and I want to push it. And I think a lot of it for me is I really love atmospheric games. And here you really can't see it until we get into the video comparison that we'll show here in a minute. But when you play this on the PC VR, it is just steeped in atmosphere. I mean, the depth goes on for days. You've got the shadows, yeah. I mean, it's just.
Beck,
I was.
are you able to show the comparison video without audio, just centered so that we can talk about it while it's playing? If not, that's okay. But sorry, go ahead, Don.
I was gonna say, I think it should be in the folder, but I think like when we were doing our stream the other day, you saw me stop dead in my tracks midstream, just sitting there, just playing with a flashlight.
Yep. And we talked. We had this whole conversation about Doom, right? Doom 3.
Yes,
has
Doom
that
3 in the
flashlight in
modding, kind of back into the modding section. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was talking with Walkabout Mini Golf's developers, right? You can bring over your bingo card from VR download over here to the game show.
Nice.
And we'll bring them. But they were talking about the number of lights that they have access to inside of their engine in like a Quest 1 and a Quest 2, and he was like joking that it was 1 or 2 lights total available for them to use in their system. And like, it explains so much so quickly when you realize that is how limited devs have been with the graphics capabilities on these early systems.
Well, and it also gives like ultimate, kudos to them for how they've been able to push out stuff that looks this amazing on that system with those limitations.
Well, and then like when you get a flashlight in there, if you give the person the agency, and it's silly to think of agency in holding a flashlight, but like just the ability to really feel like your flashlight is illuminating all the little cracks of the environment, and the little creepy doll isn't hiding behind the wood slat behind the desk over there in the corner, right? Like, and you can use your flashlight to really look over there. It's phenomenal how important just that little thing is to the experience. And you noticed a few differences when you were taking that flashlight around PC VR and Quest 3, right?
Yeah. The biggest difference I noticed was depth. Depth of the scene. I mean, so when you're in the carousel scene, for example, that we were talking about on the stream, in that scene when we were playing it on PC VR, everything looked like it had just an eerie depth to it, and everything just kind of tapered off and got darker and darker and darker the farther you looked into the distance. Where on the Quest 3 version, it is just you've got this far in front of your face and everything's just black. So it doesn't really.
So there's a little hint of depth in the darkness
little
on
hint of
PC
depth,
VR,
but it's the lack of detail, like you see here. Like you can see details in the background that really pull that scene together and make it feel like you're in a believable 3-dimensional space while this is all happening.
And it's fascinating because I'm looking at your videos, right? And we went back and forth on what's the best presentation for this. And I'll be curious in our comments when we take things like this. These are 2 screenshots that came directly off their respective devices. And we had discussion about, like, do we artificially brighten this one up in order to see whether the detail is actually there in the background or not, and explain that to our readers? No, we're taking these straight off the devices as much as we can.
No, this is straight capture, straight from PC, straight from Quest 3.
And there's people that can look at each of these and say, I actually like the way the shadowing works in something like this. But then you look at something like this, and it becomes shocking sometimes how different the feeling can be. The PC VR lighting, the glow around all of these lights that were so important for the arcade atmosphere, that I didn't see those in any way as important as Quest 3. And that has a small effect in addition to the depth of the darkness, right?
Well, and I mean, obviously, I mean, once again, though, we are literally, it's almost like the difference between a economy car and a Ferrari. I mean, this screenshot came from my PC running a 13900K 64 gigs of RAM and a 4090. So
and it's it's, why are we doing this? Like, there's a certain segment of the audience that go, don't do that. That's mean. Why would you ever? At the same time, like, you've got to respect those people that are like, Oh, that's why I should go play that
Well,
on PC VR,
and
because that is a significant thing.
it kind of goes back, it kind of back ends to what we were discussing just a minute ago when we were talking about the headsets, and like having that entry level version versus having that, somebody going out and spending, $5,000-6,000 on a high end PC and motion simulators and all this to really chase that down. So it really depends on what kind of gamer you are. If you just want to jump in and game and have a good time, by God, play it on Quest 3.
Yeah,
It's a great release. So we're not trying to, cast aspersions on either one.
yeah.
I'm saying it's a great game no matter what. I'm just saying if you want it to look and play the oops, sorry, I keep doing that gesture. If you want it to look and play the best, obviously, and you're willing to pursue it, then you're going to get the best experience on your PCVR.
Yeah, that relates to an editorial that I need to finish off here, but I do think that people that are upgrading from a Quest 1 or Quest 2 would be very, you can go get a Quest 3.
Hmm.
You can be, what Don just said, you could be happy with that. But if you go and actually get a PC to upgrade your Quest 1 and Quest 2, you're getting access to Half-Life Alyx,
Yeah, oh God, big
Flight
time.
Simulator,
With
all
just a
these,
PC and a
yeah, with just a
cable.
PC, a
Yeah,
good PC, right?
or
But
a
like,
good PC. Yeah.
you can add all of those things to your aging Quest 1 or Quest 2 if that's something you've never
Well,
done.
and we got a comment here from Jack B, and he has a good point. He says you wouldn't think PC VR would help something like a game like Walkabout, which I know is one
Yeah.
of your favorite games, but the frame rate gains alone over something like AirLink and things like that make it worthwhile.
That's a good
So
point. It gives you more overhead
you've got more power, you've got
yeah,
more
yeah.
horsepower. I
Yep.
mean, so
Fantastic points. I think we've got yeah, I think that's probably the main part of our discussion. Is there any comments you want to get into
um,
before we throw over to this
currently
pre-taped interview?
let's see here. On a KZ, this is a bad example. If anything, the PC version looks like the Homer car more than the Ferrari.
Yeah.
But just really, people are just talking about FNAF now. And, Paradise Decay saying he prefers FNAF 2 over the first game. Uh,
Yeah. And it looked really it was really delightful to see kind of like
okay.
how
Here's
scared you got from the lighting, right? Like you seemed legitimately alarmed by multiple threats in
couple
that
times.
room.
Yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
times, and it really, once again, it's almost like, and I'm going to kind of bring up that note challenge from earlier. Is it was playing on my limbic system a little bit. I mean, I was really kind of feeling those hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and
Yep.
the dread of not completing these tasks and getting that jump scare was motivation for me to really learn what I was doing. So
So I think we'll definitely take a good hard look at horror over the course of the year and see if we can build some really great lists. We've
yeah,
got
I
some
will.
lists already, but it's changing. The whole
It
market
is.
is changing
It
quite a
is
bit. I think let's do one more pitch here for becoming a member of UploadVR.com. Please
absolutely.
come over to the website and support our work directly. It means a lot to us when we see names that we see in
Yeah.
our comments or our
Also,
shows.
the YouTube channel, like, share,
Yep.
subscribe. Just got to throw that out there. So
Yep. And thank you so much for your incredible work, Don, getting up to speed with how we do things at Upload VR. You're doing incredible work out there. Definitely put any questions of favorite games to Don. He's got a lot of experience in a variety of things, and anything that you've sort of missed, we're gonna fill in together. We're gonna go on
absolutely,
a lot of journeys over the next couple months,
this is going to
trying
be
out all the different things that have
it's going to be a
been
great couple of
brewing.
months coming up.
Yeah, it
I mean,
is. And
lots of good stuff
oh,
coming down the pipeline.
we just got to make sure your air conditioning holds out over summer because
No,
that's yeah.
I'm working on it.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go over to that interview from Beck showing over Brazen Blaze. And thank you, all of you, for tuning in for this impromptu episode. We'll be back soon. We've got VR download
Clayman,
on.
thank you for joining. Thank you,
Well, I
Clayman.
guess we're going to be at a different time next week for VR download because Google I/O is coming, and we'll have to see whether Android XR surfaces, whether they ignore VR completely, and say that AR is the future, whether Job Simulator makes an appearance. We'll find out all of that at Google I/O next week, and then we'll have a VR
So
download
much
episode
news.
separate to that. And then we'll be back with gaming as soon as we can here. And we
Yeah.
have the showcase next month, and I've seen some of those entries coming in, and it's exactly what I described. Those interesting ideas that are early in development, mixed in with some really cool big things coming
You
down
will
the
not
pipeline.
want to miss the showcase, guys. It is.
Yep. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the future. Take it away, Beck.
Hi, I'm Beck. I'm the marketing director for UploadVR, and I have Alberto Moreno here from My Dearest, who's here to talk to us about some updates with Brazen Blaze that are going to be going on. How are you doing today, Alberto?
Hello, Beck. Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing great, actually. Very excited with all the open beta we are running right now, getting the feedback from the players, and just using the feedback for the next update.
Cool. So what's happening right now with Brazen Blaze?
Well, we have started a couple of weeks, like 3 weeks ago or something like that, a new free open beta. We had a previous one, but it was quite short. It was only 1 week, and we didn't have enough time to get, all the feedback from the players and apply it. So we decided to do a long open beta, just to get all the feedback, apply it, see how people's reacting to that, get more feedback, and just get everything ready to make a good game for release. So our biggest update, we're gonna have more updates. It's but the first one, the first big update is coming in May 31st. Very soon, very soon.
Oh.
I have to say it's been chaotic because we had some stuff planned, but then again we got some requests from the community, some feedback like, you should add this, you should change this, and we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna do it. So
Oh,
it's
do you have an example of one of those?
oh yeah, it's like for example, this like we are gonna add a new mode because the thing is, people wanted. We have a training mode, but it's extremely simple. So people wanted a mode so they can actually just practice alone.
Okay.
So we are gonna add, and that was decided, and it's being implemented and coded right now. That was like a 1 week ago or something like that. We are gonna add. We don't have the official name yet, but it's gonna be like a score attack.
Okay.
So players are gonna be able to train just shooting and punching drones. It's kind of like a time attack thing. So it's like you're gonna get used to the movement, not only the skills of the characters, the runners. So that's one of the things. I mean, in the previous open beta, we only had like a one mode, the round match mode. So you know the usual 3 versus 3, but no respawn. You die, sucks for you. You have to wait till the next round. And it worked sometimes, but we got some feedback, so we tried the new mode. We respawn. Now we are bringing back the round matches mode, and we are also going to add custom match mode, so people is going to be able to make their own rooms, play with friends, even do like a 1 versus 1, like a duel mode. And the spectator mode everybody was asking for. So finally, people is gonna be able to do tournaments. Content creators are gonna be able to do more cool stuff. We have like a streamer mode implemented in the game, but it wasn't enough. So now we're gonna have a spectator mode and some like a balance change to the characters, stuff like that. And that's the first update. More
Okay.
coming.
Cool.
More
And
coming.
so that's coming out on May 31st, you said?
Yep.
What platforms can people play Brazen Blaze on?
They can download the game on AppLab. Be careful because it's also we have like on the front store of Meta we have a Brazen Blaze for the wish list. But if you look for Brazen Blaze beta, it's also up on AppLab. But also you have like a Steam VR.
Okay.
And I mean, side quest is there too.
Yeah. Cool. What platform do you play it on?
Meta. I have my Meta Quest 3. I love it. I play it on the AppLab. And
Cool.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's like a social game. It's multiplayer. You're gonna have fun with friends, with some like random people, make new friends, and it's high paced. You can play matches for like 5 minutes, call it a day. You can get addicted and play for hours, like some of our players. So yeah, I mean, as like a 10 seconds bit, I'm gonna describe the game as one of the players did the other day that I love it. VR Smash Bros with guns.
Amazing. Okay.
I really like it. I don't usually like to say like, yeah, this is like another game in VR,
Yeah.
but I really like the way the VR Smash Bros with guns. It's like, yeah, that describes the game.
Yeah.
If you like Smash Bros, Overwatch, just having fun overall, yes, try it out. It's free, and overall, leave the feedback. Tell us what you like, you don't like, and we'll work on that. That's why we are doing the open beta, because we want to, as I said, we are making the game for the players with the players.
That's really awesome. Thank you so much, Alberto, for speaking with me today. And I'll put a link in the description for people to sign up for that update on May 31st.
Thank you, Beck. Thank you, everyone, for watching the podcast. See you in Brazen Blaze.
Yes.
All right, so that's that little video look at Brazen Blaze. Sorry about the audio there. Beck was trying to fix that live, so hopefully our audio is back at normal levels. We've got our outro here. We're going to say goodbye, but we forgot to do one game here, Don. This is called What Am I Holding?
Oh,
okay.
What am I holding? This is the most important segment of the entire show, guys, right here. So what is Ian holding?
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you have any guess what this is. I'm holding it right here. I'm trying to give you a sense of its dimensions and what the hell this is. And yeah, well.
So should we give them a clue?
I mean, this is a clue, right? This is.
Yeah, I guess
like,
this is.
Yeah, this is all they get. What is this? What is this thing? We'll look in the comments, and I guess we'll say if the first one we see is right, we'll call it out as being correct. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in this week. I guess we'll see. It might be in the after comments,
what he's actually holding.
Yeah. Wait, I can't. How can I can't pass this to Beck.
I was going to say D1360 is saying, is it a Vive Tracker 3?
Nope. Good try.
Clayman's is it an iPad?
Nope. Good. You got the dimensions. Dimensions are on the right track.
Dimensions are on the right track. We got Jonas asking, is it an Xbox controller?
Ooh, good guess. No, not quite.
I got game controller Rabbit R1.
No, I'm not buying one of those.
I was gonna say.
Why can't you just put your iPhone or an Android in a little holster, a little like water carrying bag? Just let the camera see outside, and put your frickin' Bluetooth AirPods in. You're done. Move on.
Right. Let's see here. We got Jada Productions, but he's asking, is it a big screen Beyond?
Ooh, that's a good. I've got that. That's. We'll do that one another week. I've got that.
That's what I haven't tried. I got to try that headset.
Yeah. Nope. All right. Well, I think we should cancel the show here. End the show.
Steam Deck, PS5
I'm not seeing
controller.
I'm not seeing any correct answers. Not a Steam Deck. I've got that over there. This is smaller than a Steam Deck, smaller than an iPad. I'll give those hints before we end the show. And I guess we'll see if anyone guesses it in the comments, in the after show comments. We'll go in there.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, I'll put that down right there. Oh, you could hear it. I wonder if you can hear it click.
Oh.
Ooh, I wonder if that helps. That probably helps. All right,
iPhone?
Ooh, no, good guess.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thank
All
you so
right, guys.
much.
Peace.